Hi, Damon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Absolutely. So we just heard from Lou that you passed some information to the FBI related to the ongoing federal investigation into the APD DWI unit, a local attorney and his paralegal. Walk me through that. What were you told? What was your initial reaction to what you were told?
So I have to be careful about what I can say because it's an ongoing criminal investigation, and I want to be wary of not compromising that. So I'm not going to give you any specifics, but I can say that was more than one person, and that the information, it would be fair to say, upset me a great deal, and that I reacted to it immediately. So when the story, this was all prior to the story coming out in the paper, so when the story came out, I mean, the whole thing, I think, is upsetting.
Yeah. So you went to the FBI. You told them
did.
about this. Can you give me any kind of timeline?
I can't.
Okay.
I did talk to the U.S. Attorney before talking to you to make sure what information I could share with you, because I don't know anything about the actual criminal investigation. I got to be careful about where I'm doing it, but I can't give you any specifics like that.
But this was not after the story broke. This was not this year. This
Correct.
was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
Okay. Can you talk at all about kind of your role going forward? What did the agents do with the information? Kind of like how did you, after you told the FBI, what happened next?
I thought, and part of the reason I agreed to this is that, we so focus on people doing bad things, and in this situation, what I saw was once the information broke, once they had it, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, really, I'm not a criminal lawyer, did their job and did it very effectively. And we'll talk a little bit, when you want to, we can talk a little bit about what the district attorney did, what Sam Bregman did. They did their jobs. And I think in this situation, which is very difficult to be in, I was impressed that the institution did their job both federally and state.
Are you representing these potential victims? Any lawsuits in the future?
Nope. I even if there was one, I wouldn't do it. I do think that kind of thing would compromise what's happened. I don't see a lawsuit, but I didn't talk to these people for that purpose. I talked to them because they needed a lawyer to guide them through the process. Obviously, I wouldn't charge for that. I want these people who are victims of, allegedly, of what's happened, I want them to feel comfortable with the process, and I became kind of a guide to them.
Is there anything you can tell me about them? Like kind of what was their demeanor coming to you? Kind of how did they?
I think the one thing that I would say is, the one thing I would give you is these were young people, and that I was impressed because I think when you are willing to come forward and talk about somebody doing something wrong to you that has power, that shows real courage. And these people showed real courage.
Why do you think they came to you?
So I get asked that a lot. There are a handful of lawyers in town that are identified as lawyers that go after not just negligent lawyers, but sometimes lawyers that wrongful conduct. It's a pretty small bar we have, and I happen to be within that bar, and so it wasn't shocking to me that I got the call.
And of course, you're not just an attorney, you were also a former legislator. With that in mind, is there any policy or legislative fixes you can think of that might, I know nobody's been charged yet, we still have an idea of what these allegations are, but nothing is for sure. But knowing what you know, are there any policy fixes that you think could come down the line?
Here's kind of, let's step back for a minute. The short answer is, I don't think so, not yet. We'll have to see if there was some gap in the system. But this is a criminal justice system, and the word I want to focus on is system. Everybody in that system has to do their job, and you have to trust that they're going to do it with integrity. And when you have bad actors like this, really hard to catch it immediately. Now, whether it went on too long and they didn't catch it, that I don't know, and maybe there needs to be things in terms of the auditing process. But the thing that I want to quickly say is that, so the short answer is no. I don't think so, because it really would be an administrative thing that would happen at the local level. The thing that was really impressive to me and why ordinarily I would not be talking to you, but I'm talking to you today, is that our DA did, in my judgment, exactly the right thing. Because what he did was he dismissed those cases. He's got to relook at all of them. The public needs to understand that is exactly the right thing. He didn't play politics with it. Some DAs would have been tempted to do that. He was not. You can't do it in that situation. Once you have a law enforcement officer that is alleged to have done something that is wrongful and corrupt, you got to start all over again. I'm not sure that those cases aren't permanently compromised, but at least at the beginning, you rip off the Band-Aid and you move forward. You can't wait around, and that's what Sam Bregman did. And I thought, I'm going to take that opportunity to talk to you and your viewers and say, that's something that we should applaud. He did the right thing. It was gutsy.
I'd love to explore that a little bit more. Why is it so important that, that you have the DAs on one side, you have the defense attorneys on the other side? Kind of, why is it important that the DA kind of went out and dismissed these cases ahead of time?
Because the DA is more than about convictions. It's more than about trying a case and convicting people. That's important. But what's most important is that the public trusts the integrity of the system. And and one of the main guardians of that integrity, in addition to judges, is the DA, has a principal role in protecting the integrity of the system. And that's what he did. He went, you know what? I can't go out there and say to the public, this is all going to be okay. This is not okay. We have allegations against these officers, and we need to do something about it right now to assure the public that there is a basic integrity to the system.
From my own reporting, I know that this investigation kind of centers around, the APD, DWI officers allegedly working with at least one attorney, Thomas Clear, to make the cases go away. We've heard reports from a former court employee. There's obviously a recording that came forward last week about somebody with a different allegation. Of course, no one's been charged, but, it's been in the news a lot. Lots of people already don't think very highly of lawyers either. And since we're talking about public trust, what does that do to kind of your profession and trust in lawyers as well?
You would think I spent the last, 30 years going after lawyers, and you would think that my attitude would be, gee, lawyers are bad and all that stuff. I don't. And is this great for lawyers? No, it clearly is not. It's not great for law enforcement people either. But ultimately, I think most police officers, just like most lawyers, go through their day-to-day lives with integrity and want to do the right thing. It is the few bad apples, right? And that's true in this situation. But it hasn't made me cynical about fellow lawyers. I think the public should understand that most lawyers are decent people and trying to do their jobs.
Are you having conversations with other lawyers about how to kind of grapple with this, or kind of how to move forward, how to kind of, what they're thinking and
Not yet, because we really don't know. I mean, my involvement was so limited that I get the impression that it's the tip of the iceberg. It just seems like there's a lot of information coming out that I don't know anything about. We have to wait and see how widespread this is, and I really don't know before lawyers do anything, if anything can be done. So obviously it's something that the disciplinary board is likely to look at least from a lawyer perspective, and that process will take place. But other than that, I can't think of anything today.
Yeah. I mean, obviously also DWI is a huge problem in our state, and it's something that, we grapple with kind of all over the state, but also in Albuquerque. Can you talk at all about kind of what effect, like allegations like this might have on just kind of how people view DWI, or how they view the legal system if they get charged with DWI?
I spent as a legislator a lot of time on criminal justice, even though I'm not a criminal lawyer. And the most certain deterrent to crime is swift and certain justice. We heard that over and over again. But along with that is assumed that there's an integrity to the process. And so that's why I thought it was so critical what the DA did, because he immediately went in to say, we're going to restore integrity to this process. Because as you say, DWI is a big issue. Crime is a big issue. And we want to be able to look at the public, the criminal justice field, even though I'm not a part of that, but when I was a legislator, we wanted to be able to look at the public and say, we are working towards deterring crime by having a system with integrity where people get caught, they know justice is coming and it's coming quickly. And I think, to be frank with you, we're still working on that, but sometimes out of these bad situations come surprisingly good things. And this was a real test for the DA, and I thought he passed it with flying colors.
Was this something you were expecting, kind of as, you've been thinking about this with your involvement in it? Had you considered, had you thought about the fact that the DA was going to have to dismiss all these cases? Was that something that you had been kind of anticipating all along?
No, it didn't, because I'm not a criminal defense lawyer or a prosecutor. I wasn't thinking about it that way. But when he did it, and did it so quickly, it was like, well, yes, of course, that's the right thing to do. That's what was so refreshing about it. It wasn't like I was sitting there waiting for him to do something. He did it. It was, frankly, not exactly a lawyer term, but a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah. And of course, that's because of the Giglio disclosures, that's why he had to do those cases. He's told us that he wouldn't put forward witnesses with integrity. Can you talk at all about kind of why that's specifically important in DWI cases?
No way.
No?
Way
Okay.
beyond my pay grade. Can't talk about it.
Okay, well, I've talked to other people who, the officer is kind of the main witness in the case usually. There's not another victim unless it's more tragic than just DWI. But yeah, it all relies on kind of the officer's credibility with the breathalyzer and the.
Well, but think about, that's why we talk about a system,
Yeah.
right? Because you start with the officer, and then you have the investigator or the district attorney, then you have the courts, and you have the defense lawyer, and you have the correction officers, and the social workers. All of those people need to do their job for this system to work. And usually it does, but when it falls apart, even one cog in that wheel is enough to derail it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Do you think this is going to have lasting impacts on the way the whole system functions?
I don't know. I would think that depending on how long and how widespread it was, there almost will certainly be a review of what kind of auditing could have been done to catch it, but pretty hard when you're talking about people that you're supposed to trust to always be looking over their shoulder. That's a pretty hard thing to be doing, but I suspect there'll be some additional checks and auditing procedures that'll come up out of this.
Do you expect to hear back from the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office?
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
I don't. I think my involvement is at an end. Okay. I'm surprised I'm here.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Can we have you back on when after the charges break, and maybe you can give us a little bit more?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I will run it by the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I think once we know what's going on, I'll be happy to give you whatever information I can.
Well, thank you so much, Damon. I really appreciate you sitting down here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.